Hey everybody, it's Tuesday.
We're getting a little bit of feedback. We're working on that. But thanks for being here. We threw us off. Welcome to Hook, Line, and Striker. I guess that's kind of the way that I usually start that. With that, kind of a crazy evening. So thank you for being here. And we're looking forward to it. So, we tend to start talking a little bit about fishing and all that. Let us know what your water temps are at. Let us know how fishing is going for you. A lot has changed in the last week since we've seen you. Walleye opener in Minnesota, we'll certainly talk about that. Panfish is starting to go strong in quite a few different locations. So, again, let us know where you're listening from, where you're watching from. Let us know how fishing is, and let us know if you have questions as we get going. So, should we bring in our guest?
Yeah.
We have here tonight with us, we have Beef. So welcome to the show.
How's it going, guys?
Hey, Beef.
You can hear me fine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. We're good.
So thanks again for being here. One of our first questions is always, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm old. I fish a lot. I go to shows a lot, and I love the outdoors, and I have a lot of fun. No, I feel like I'm interviewing for another teaching job. No, no, it's I'm an outdoor junkie, and I used to be a multi-species angler, and now I'm basically a Lake of the Woods specialist, because that's about all we have up here is Lake of the Woods and Rainy River. So it's changed the way I fish, but I'm in God's country, so I can't argue.
Well, and as far as limiting it down to two bodies of water, you really have two great systems there. A whole huge lake with tons and tons of acreage of water, but then the river system. So anytime, one isn't going strong, the other tends to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's amazing how the fish travel between the two and stuff. And Lake of the Woods, I call it my 1,000,000-acre pond. It's amazing how big it is. And right now, we can't use a bunch of it because of the border closures. But when the border opens up again, the fishing's lake trout, smallmouth bass, muskies, crappies. It's a smorgasbord of fishing. So, and you're in the middle of nowhere. And then when you want to come into the river, it's like this time of the year, the fish are starting to move out. Some of the walleyes, we keep a resident population in here, but the dinos, the sturgeon are absolutely everywhere. And my dock's just about 100 feet that way, and I could sit down there and watch sturgeon going nuts. And I get to watch anglers come up and toss me adult beverages, and we have a blast. So it's a good time here in Lake of the Woods.
Not everybody can say that they have sturgeon right out their back door, so that really is an amazing thing. You are really super lucky. Tell us a little bit about being able to fish.
Being a teacher is number one priority, but I sure like to sneak out of school early some days. Not feeling good, so play the sick day card. No, I don't do that anymore. But it's so crazy. I can come out. I have two boats sitting down if I don't want to use my big guide boat, and I can just putz out about 40 yards and throw a big old no-roll sinker with a gob of crawlers and sit back and relax. Or if we're guiding and stuff, we have a lot of opportunities to have big fish too. We're talking a lot of fish over 60 inches, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is really super cool. So, when you get a bite like that, is that, a giant bite, they crush it, or sometimes it's like, a little nibble that has weight with it?
You think of a fish that's 70 inches long or 60 inches long and weighs anywhere between 60 and 90 pounds. You would think that those fish would just absolutely blow up like on Wicked Tuna when you hear the taking off and stuff like that. Well, this one here, you're watching these big old behemoth dinosaurs, and you're watching your rod tip go tip, tip, and it's like, seriously. And then all of a sudden you wind it up, and there's a fish there, and you set the hook, and your rod just goes twink. And it's so cool to watch. But there's sometimes when they want to go nuts, and they just shred your line, and you have to chase after them sometimes. But the last time I was out here, I had my little guy Luke with me, and he had one that jumped 3 or 4 times right by the boat. We're getting soaked in the boat. It was so much fun to watch. Bass fishing? Who cares? We got sturgeon jumping.
And so, that's something that a lot of people don't get the chance to do. So, is there a season for that? If people were looking for a guide, where do they look for that?
Yeah, we do have 2 seasons on a catch season. Then we have a bunch of catch and release times too. And right now we just shut down to no harvesting, no catching, no targeting sturgeon. They let it sit until sometime. I'm not sure on the exact date right now. I'm in walleye mode, but they have till sometime in July is when it reopens up a little bit, and then we have it goes into the fall and stuff. But the prime time is right. I mean, when the ice it's so cool because the ice goes from off to the east and it pushes west out to the lake, so it goes opposite. So it comes from International Falls and goes towards Badette. And what's really cool about it is, as that ice pack's moving, the fish and the fishermen are right behind the ice. I mean, they're pitching jigs up onto the ice, and it's just insane to watch. And as soon as you get that first little bit of open water, the first thing you see is poof, sturgeon jumping. And it's so cool. Like, they're happy it's open water time, where I'm the opposite. I don't want to see the ice leave. I'm a diehard ice fisherman, but it's fun to watch.
That is actually a really awesome story. On the Wolf River, we see sturgeon here as well, but, we don't see that same activity, right with the ice breakup because, our river doesn't often freeze that solid. I guess they go down to Winnebago. I'm not on the lake at that point. So if you are from Lake Winnebago and you see that happening, let me know because that's cool. I'd want to check that out. But Beef, the other thing that you were mentioning is walleye season. You were a little bit distracted by that. So, this past weekend was opener. I mean, can you tell us a little bit about how that went?
It was unusual because opener in Minnesota is usually the same weekend as Mother's Day. And the way the calendars fell, they pushed it back. I think it's once every 6 years they go the 3rd week in May. And so what was neat about this whole deal was, usually I'm in my striker gear or whatever, trying to stay warm as the snowflakes are flying on opener. This year I was in shorts and t-shirt with flip-flops, and I'm like, this isn't opener fishing. It was so weird. I felt like I was bass opener or something like that, But it was neat. It was a great experience this year because we had good weather, low wind up here, and then on Sunday it started blowing a little bit harder. But the fish were cooperating. It was this lake, it's known for walleye capital of the world, and there's plenty of them out there. And we did catch a lot of them, 10 to 15 inchers. But on Sunday, I put the herd on to a bunch of 18, 19 inch and a bunch of slot fish after that. So it was fun.
So then in, this earliest part of the season here, what's your go-to bait to throw?
I have a couple of different things. I love jig and minnow, and just like every other location across the state, and it doesn't matter what state you're from, early season seems to always be a great jig and minnow bite. But then I love to troll cranks too. I love to put about 80 feet out behind me, throw a rapple out there, let it go, and let the fish come after it because they are pretty aggressive coming off their spawn, the males are. So you can have no problem finding them. But with the new technology and sonar and everything else, you could sit on top of them. I was ice fishing them on Sunday with I had about a 15-mile-an-hour wind, so I just had my trolley motor on spot lock, and I just held my rod right behind my motor and back off my transom on my boat, and I was watching the depth finder like this, and you'd see the fish come up, and you're like, oh, here we go. So it was, like I said, I'm a diehard ice fisherman. If I could be like Dave Gens and drill a hole in my boat, I would, but I can't because I don't know what it would do.
That's really awesome. There are some times where just jigging over the side of the boat is even best done with an ice rod. So I hear you.
Yep. It's crazy what you can do, but it was fun. I mean, and up here, when you get on a school of fish, I've never been a vertical jig fisherman until I moved up here. A lot of the lakes back in Bemidji, I grew up in Bemidji for 25 years. And before that, I was a city boy down in the Twin Cities from Apple Valley. And so I was fishing Crystal Lake, Waconia, a bunch of them neat lakes down there. And then coming up north to Bemidji, it took me a long time to get through school because I fished a lot and I played sick every day type attitude. And so 8 years of college later, I finally got a degree. And, they could almost call me Dr. Beef, but it was pretty crazy to see where we went. But down there, we'd always drift. We'd always let the wind push us and bounce the jigs along bottom. Here, you spot lock, you drop an anchor, you sit on top of nothing, and you wait for the fish to swim in. And it's so weird to do that. And my ADHD, and I want to move. I want people to have a
method, but then, a lot of places are starting to experience different things like zebra mussels. And that change, that water clarity is really, really affecting that vertical jig bite. And you're hearing a lot of times now, getting that bait away from the boat. So kind of interesting to hear that you've changed in one direction and a lot of people are going in the other.
Yeah, we have zebra mussels up here, but our water is pretty stained. In the river, it's really funny to watch because as soon as ice is out, the river is really clear. When I say clear, we're talking 3 to 4 feet, which is amazing up here. Back in Bemidji, I heard Cass Lake this year is right around 25 feet of water clarity. So it's like I've never been down to the ocean fishing. I'm not lucky enough to go down there. I'm on the opposite direction of all the oceans. I'm up in the tundra, but it's pretty crazy. You hear how they fish for like bonefish and stuff when they see them on the flats. That's how you fish Bemidji, but up here, yeah, you're right. It's a whole new ball game, but it works. And if you got the stained water, go after it,
Yeah, absolutely. So, with such stained water, you're talking about these different baits. Do you have go-to colors that, seem to work best?
Yeah, I have gold, pink, orange, chartreuse, green. I use them all. My go-to, Lake of the Woods has always been known as a gold lure, a gold colored type deal. I have a few buddies that guide up here, and the ones that love gold, they say when the sun is shining, you go to gold because that little bit of sun that gets down there hits that gold and it refracts and it causes the fish to want it. Well, I've used gold, and then sometimes you buy jigs that have little tip to pink on it or orange on it. They all catch fish. That's the fun part about it. I do have. It's interesting. You could be fishing 15 feet of water. I do use heavier jigs still, which is different than down in Bemidji. A 1/4 ounce is probably my go-to all the time up here compared to an 1/8 ounce. You're not chasing walleyes in the weeds up here. You're not chasing fish that are 6 feet of water or less unless you're targeting smallmouth, or even the crappies are out usually off the rocks and stuff. So up here, a 1/4 ounce jig will take you to almost any species of fish you want to catch.
That's a good tip.
Yeah, and I guess I would not have expected that, so that's really awesome. We have a few people checking in here online, so welcome to those of you at home. If you do have questions, certainly put that in the comment section, and we do actually have one that already popped up here, so I'm going to add that to our current conversation. So is pitching shiver minnows worth it, or do you have other techniques?
Hey, John, what we do up here a lot of the times are when we put our shiners on, we use frozen shiners. So we double hook them. So I actually do something a little different. I wish I had one with me. I demonstrated. I don't use plastics or artificial much. And I don't pitch because the frozen shiners will come off the hooks a lot easier. But I go through the eyes. So I take the hook and I go through both eyes. And then I come down, move the hook. I use long shanks. And I bring the head up, and then I come back through the body, so I double hook it, so it hangs on longer. But most people will run it through the mouth, out the gill, down and up through the belly. I go through the eyes. It seems to hold a lot better. I don't ever use live bait anymore. I used to use fatheads and stuff, but the frozen shiners, our natural forage up here is emerald shiners. There's a ton of them. And when they come running through the river and stuff, we're waiting for them sometimes. And we have guys up here that net them and trap them and stuff. But as far as pitching jigs, I have a tough time doing that because usually when you bounce them off the rocks, they'll fall off. The bait does. There's a lot of rocks out here. And then when we go to sand and mud, once we move out into that mud, especially, we go to spinner rigs or crankbaits.
Yeah, absolutely. You're talking about emerald shiners, and I'm thinking about, our Wolf River system. We, in the last few years, have had so many minnows hatch. Sometimes the key is, match the hatch, but be the best hatch. So, some days that's the biggest minnows or even the smallest minnows, you never know. But I like the idea of the frozen bait because you really can kind of bring your different array and not have to keep them alive and all of that comes along with your traditional live bait.
Yeah, I have a cooler. I usually put 3-4 packs of frozen ones in there. By the time I get to the lake, one is already kind of softened up. The secret is to keep them cold, but don't let them get soft and mushy, super warm. So, and then that's what we go after them that way then. And it's crazy what you do. And then if you go into Canada, it's another whole ball game because you're not allowed to bring live bait in. And if you have crawlers, they cannot be in dirt, so you have to have them in bedding. So and you can't bring leeches in. The frozen shiners, you can bring those in because they're frozen as long as they have a tag on them and stuff. But it's tough. I mean, you got to know the rules when you come on Lake of the Woods.
Yeah, and that's a huge reason to get a guide, because, to know all those rules, I mean, there is a lot out there, and to, prepare all for that. I mean, it's super possible because people do it, but when you have somebody knowledgeable along with you, that takes you really, really a long way, right down to the worms and the type of bedding that you have to use. I mean, I guess, I know that sometimes the regulations are really specific, so I can't say that I'm so surprised, but I'm a little bit surprised.
Yeah, it's fun to watch and it's fun to learn, and you learn to make your COs your friends up here, and it's a great thing to have a relationship with COs too. Instead of being mad at them, get to know them, and they'll help you out too.
Yeah. Well, and then as far as those regulations do go, where do people kind of find all of those, like the list?
The Minnesota DNR on their site has a great one on Lake of the Woods, and all our local bait shops up here. We have a few good bait shops. There's not many of them, but we have like Steve Lucky Bait Outdoors again, Log Cabin, and Border Bait. Those are just some in the Baudette side, and they're all very knowledgeable there. So if you come into Lake of the Woods or Baudette and you want to target specifically, that they're great resources of information.
Yeah, DNR website does always have all of that. If you're crossing into the Canada side, I actually don't know if you can do that right now because the border might be closed. So I guess we don't even have to answer that question. So no worries. Have fun.
Yeah, but Canada looks pretty nice. I'm looking at it right now at my window. So, I wouldn't mind being over there fishing, but hi, Canada. But that's why we got the USA flags on these.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So, one of the things I kept hearing all winter is about how many new anglers seem to be out in Minnesota, or returning anglers that hadn't been there in a long time, just overall busy on the water. Does that still hold true so far with open water?
Well, the DNR fisheries just came out with the creel survey, and we were a half an hour or an hour and a half away from setting a new number of hours record for ice fishing. I don't know how they come up with it because I'm not the one sitting out there counting, but it was like 270.5 million angling hours this winter on Lake of the Woods. So there was a lot of pressure. And I think what made it interesting was the re-innovation of wheelhouses. I mean, the wheelhouses now are campers in the summer, ice houses, camping on the ice in the winter. We saw quite a few of them compared to a lot of our resorts that like to do their own trips or bombers and stuff like that. So ice fishing's evolving a lot, and it's going to happen, and you just got to go with it. So you got to work with it instead of against it.
Well, and the ice is super welcoming to people because although it's kind of a huge beast to tackle, almost any person can walk on and, hopefully make a hole, hopefully go fishing. With open water, I mean, early season, you have, the spawns, you have especially panfish coming really shallow. So if you're a shore fisherman, that's super possible. But otherwise, not everybody has a boat. And I think that becomes a big factor in that.
Absolutely. And, and I work with like the Take a Kid fishing events up here, and we raised a bunch of money this last weekend at a tournament. And, it's amazing how many youth can't go fishing because they don't have a way to get out on the water. So, and that's another whole cup of worms we could talk about. But like ice fishing, same thing. A lot of these communities are finally starting to do ice fishing events where they're bringing kids together, a kid's perch jerk, or just a way to show them how to fish. And that's where our future is. If we don't start looking at our youth and our teenagers, and we got to get them away from cell phones. We have to get them away from video games. And by downloading a fishing game on your cell phone, that doesn't count. So.
Yeah, no, that's true. Well, you're talking about, people out ice fishing. I mean, I know it's open water now, but I think, that's the other thing about ice fishing is that, a different hub or whatever kind of camper style thing that you've got out there, that makes it really easy to bring a family. Snacks are with, entertainment is with, if fishing isn't going, and there's so much to be had with open water as well, but, you're totally missing the element of, that like on water shack. So hopefully one of these years somebody can come up with a really awesome, maybe I just need a houseboat.
There you go. With wheels.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh man. So we've talked a little bit about sturgeon and we talked a little bit about walleyes. So how is panfish going up by you?
there's not much panfish up here. This winter we had over at the resort I work at, Cyrus Resort, in the winter, we had probably 20 crappies caught all winter. So they're there, but they're really, Lake of the Woods is multiple lakes in one type deal, where you got the lake trout in one area, crappies and smallies in an area. Your walleyes, they love the South Basin where all the mud is and stuff. So that's where your bigger walleyes are. So pan fishing is a lot tougher. The perch, if you find them, you can get 14, 15-inch perch, and they're just monsters. And we have a couple of spots that we can go to find them, but you don't catch your limits of 20 of them and stuff like that. So it's mostly a walleye, sauger, northern pike, smallmouth bass lake, and there's a lot of other things, but it's not like Bemidji or your lakes by your area where you can go target sunnies and, you know, you just bring your ultralights. Don't bring anything that's heavier action than that. No, we don't have that here.
You got big water, you got big fish. Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the fun part.
Well, and we had the question here from Jonathan. So if he's targeting crappies, the best place to start, honestly, you know, check what those water temperatures are, because, you know, you can sit here and guess and guess and guess where fish can be. But the best indication of that is, you know, kind of what they're doing based on their environment. So is it warm enough to spawn? Then they're super shallow. You know, look for structure, different branches. You know, crappies, they love to spawn by wood. So different things like that. But otherwise, I would say check out the local bait shops.
And if I was chasing a lake that had crappies, one of the things I like to do is look for like windswept points or stuff where they would spawn, and then they have access to deep water nearby. What they'll do is they'll move in and out. So as the water temps rise, as the sun's out, they'll come up onto their beds, or they'll get up shallow. But as soon as it cools down, or if you get a cloudy day, they'll hang out and suspend right off those beds in deep water. And up here in Lake of the Woods, what we look for, we use our side imaging. We look for debris that's down, rocks, trees, and usually off islands and stuff. That's what we're looking for here. But it's a water temp game, like you said. You know, if you know the temperature of your lake and you have a good sonar that shows you your surface temp, that will help you go a long ways.
Yeah. So what do the perch doing this time of the year then?
Well, they spawn usually, but you got to find them. And like I said, it's up here. What we look for is deep water nearby, long, sandy, rocky flats, and then you'll find them sitting up there dropping their eggs or on their beds, and then they'll move out, and then they're not too far away from the walleyes and the northerns and everything, because that's what they eat too, is the perch, and you'll see them there. But we tend to find them in the deeper holes. So there's a couple of spots just right along the Canadian border up in the angle here that we like to go to, and it drops like 35 to 40 feet deep water, and we'll work those, and there's fish out there. But that's where sometimes you'll find the perch this time of the year. It's weird. They should be up shallow, but they don't.
You know, when we talked to Robin and Bobby Schindler out in Idaho, and they're talking about Lake Cascade, and they have big perch out there. You know, we heard a lot about that this winter. They were saying that, you know, especially as those perch get big, that they get to be a little bit more like maybe a predator, that they're using larger jigs and stuff. So is that something that you see there as well? Or you're using your same minnows, or what do you use for bait then?
That 1/4 ounce jig with that frozen shiner on the back would catch a 10-inch perch or a 30-inch walleye. It is nuts up here with that. I mean, really, my tackle boxes are kind of boring. We're down in Bemidji. I had an assortment of stuff. I mean, I'd walk into the local bait shop and give me 3 of these, 2 of these, 3 of these. Now I go to the jig trick. Give me a handful. That's all it is. It's like, come on, seriously. It's such a boring deal, but you can go out and catch them.
Well, and you know, that's great, is the angler who wants to come in and, you know, try their hand maybe without a guide first, just because, you know, you have an idea. If I can get this, you know, it might work. But then isn't it frustrating when you know you're using the right bait and then you still have to track those fish down because it's a huge amount of water. So that's really crazy.
Yeah, and good sonars will always help too. I mean, I don't care which brand you have. They're all good out there, but you can use whatever you got, and you have to have electronics on this lake. It helps a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Jonathan, I know that you are going, he's asking if you control on Lake of the Woods. I know a little bit earlier you talked about using crankbaits, throwing them out there, or even just jigging. So, Jonathan, also check out the beginning of the show. Did you have anything to add to that?
I love trolling. I mean, if it's so this time of year, like I said, with jig, I try not to move too much because you're vertical fishing them. But as soon as the first set of mayflies come out, that's the general rule of thumb on Lake of the Woods. That's when we switch to spinner rigs with crawlers or crankbaits. Some guys will run downriggers. I have downriggers on the back of my Ranger if I want to run cranks, but I do different things than some people. I try to keep my settings really light so I don't kill fish. I love, when a little sauger hits it, I want to know it so I can get it off the hook. There's a lot of different techniques, but yeah, trolling is a great technique here, especially in about the second, third week of June. So we're not too far away. It all depends on our water temps. Last year, I'd never seen a mayfly hatch like we had here on Bemidji or on Lake of the Woods. It was crazy. The Holiday gas station, I put a picture on my Facebook. I sat across the road filming it, and you couldn't see the windows of the gas station. The mayflies were swirling by the lights. I'm like, oh, it was disgusting.
It's disgusting to us, but that's like fish love that. It's like buffet out there then. That's a really great tip though, to switch to something like worms, because to try to work with that hatch, I mean that's a crazy amount of forage that just dumps right in that system. So
yeah, it is.
Awesome. So
I was answering a question on my page too.
You're what?
Somebody just asked me a question on one of my pages that popped up. I was like, oh, that's cool. You guys are pretty popular.
Yeah.
I mean, you're everywhere. The Crappie Junction. I mean, it's not just with beef. It's like with the world right now.
Well,
If I shake too much, my camera's going to fall off my mount. Yeah, it's fun. I won't tell people how my camera's balancing on my laptop right now. So you got to love Zooms.
Oh my goodness. So I guess, we're talking about all this different fishing. And it does make me wonder if you're using, similar jigs, similar bait, at a fairly consistent rate, what kind of rod are you using for such a multi-purpose situation?
Well, fishing, I don't know. I mean, you watch all these bass guys down, the ones like, I can start naming off names, but there's so many of them. They all have, 40, 50 rods in their boat. I have 6, and they're all the same. They're all medium light. I like the 13 Omens. I love the 13 fishing rods, and I use all of those, and they're sensitive enough. They have a good enough backbone. And then when we start going sturgeon fishing, you can use a heavy action rod, but you want it to have an extra fast tip so you can watch that tip turn or as it's moving and stuff. But here with the walleyes, I go sensitive. I like my rods to be medium light. I like a good backbone on them. And then I go with braided line with a little chunk of fluorocarbon at the end. So I have that when that fish hits, I don't have to worry about monofilament stretching. I have that instant hook set. It's there. It's in its mouth. It's game on.
Yeah, and then certainly when you are out with the sturgeon, you're looking for a reel with a good drag system, I imagine.
Yeah, I use. You would laugh at my setup. I have probably 7 to 10 sturgeon rods, and they all have a different reel on them. So I'm wide open to everything. I like a reel I like one that has that good solid. I like just the handle, because when those fish run, and you have to have, like you said, you have to be able to dial in the drag, because those fish will take that rod, and if you don't have a rod that can bend, you're snapping your rods. I've broken so many rods over the years with using some cheap $19.99 to $39.99 special, but you can do it. It works. You just gotta fish for them the right way. One thing I would tell fishermen, if they do come up to fish sturgeon, invest into musky, heavy northern gear. Don't come up with a walleye rod. You can catch sturgeon on walleye fishing rods, and you can 6-pound test, 8-pound test. You're just going to fight it a lot longer. What we're seeing is if you come up with light gear like that, it's wear and tear on them sturgeon, and it hurts them a little bit if the fight takes that long. You can really tire. You can put a lot of stress on a fish. So we use a little bit heavier gear. You horse them in a little bit, but at the same time you're not going to horse in a fish that's big. I mean, you might think you're tough and everything, and it took you 20 minutes, but you'll see guys will fight the same size fish on lighter gear for an hour and a half, and then that fish is, it's really stressed.
Yeah. Sometimes you see a big sturgeon and it just looks like a shark. And then, you assume that it'll just make it or something. But, I think it's as much of a fragile creature in the system as, many of the others. And, being such a unique species, taking that little bit of extra care, get your picture in, have your experience. Like 20 minutes of fish fight is amazing, but to do it in a way that you can enjoy it and that the fish can still, be able to be returned and enjoy again. So that's awesome.
And that's, and like with Logan and Luke in the boat with me, there's many times they have to sit back on by my transom there, and they each have a chunk of the fish and they're hanging onto it, and they still look like little 3-year-olds, even though Logan's 17 now and Luke is 14. So it's like, that's what's so cool about it. And then when you go to release it, it takes all 3 of us to put it in the water, and it's a blast, and that's just with any fish too. You should be smart with them.
Yeah, but usually in most fish, it doesn't take 3 people. Hopefully.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And we're starting to find more and more fish out in the main lake too. So there's times that you're jig fishing and you catch a sturgeon. It sucks. But it is what it is. Listen, I'm getting mad when I'm catching a big fish,
Oh my goodness. And with all of this fishing and all these different seasons that we've talked about, we're here on the Striker Show. And I imagine that your striker gear is one of the things that helps you kind of navigate all of these different things. So do you have like a favorite piece or two that you'd like to talk about?
Oh, I the whole lineup is great. Even their hats are, see that? Look at that. This is called old age right there. Their hats are great at hiding receding hairlines, so it's amazing the products they have. But one of my go-to is always my adrenaline suit. It could be cold out. It works perfect in those temperatures. It could be raining out. It's phenomenal in that. It could be 80 degrees, but you're getting slime everywhere from your sturgeon and you want to have something to keep you from being slimed up. It works there too. So the bibs, the jacket, you go to the sweatshirts, there's nothing else out there that competes with it. It's so cool. But I love my adrenaline suit. I have 2 of them. So I keep one in my boat and I keep the other one in my house. And because when I'm out coaching football, if it starts raining, I don't put on school clothing. I put on my striker gear. So it's pretty cool. The kids at school think I'm like, I own the company or something because I have so much of it. But I tell them, no, I'm just
That's so funny. You're making an interesting point though, in sturgeon season, even if it does get warm, with that rain gear, a lot of times people think of like that thick, plasticky, old-fashioned rain gear. And that's obviously not what this is. Times have evolved and so has the rain gear. So something like that is a really great breathable barrier. If you have a lot of fish slime going on, that's really great. That might be an application where it's not even raining, where you really want to have that on.
And we see up here, since we're such a tourist destination, we see these people that come in from all over the world or across the U.S., the lower 48. They come in here and they travel a long way. So what they do is they buy the old-fashioned PVC thick rain gear and they buy rubber boots, because those were used to be the things that would never leak, and you can duct tape them, you can do everything. This adrenaline suit that I use, I would take that on a fly-in trip into Canada. If I'm going up to Northern Ontario or I'm going way up and chasing Draylene or whatever, I would take that before I would go with the $29.99 special that I know is thick as thick. And, it's not going to leak, but you are not going to breathe and you're going to sweat. If I wanted to lose weight, I'd wear that. That's what's nice about it. It's like those old-fashioned sweatsuits. But it's if you invest into the adrenaline suit, you'll never, ever regret it, just because of that purpose alone. Is it breathes, it's comfortable. They take the time to look at it, and that's why it's very nice gear.
Yeah. I love that it's packable. I know that sounds really silly, but you're talking about, if you're going on a trip, but that's really a huge point. Is sometimes those rain gear, those boots, all of that, you pack it and it's like, gosh, what am I doing? Packing for an ice trip? You feel like it's so bulky. But with this, I fit both the bibs and the jacket in just like the main pocket of a backpack. I bring a backpack on the boat with my stuff, and that fits in there with the other things that I want to bring. It's not even filling up the backpack or even nearly that. So that's a really excellent thing. But then aside from that, it looks good. So you have that really cool veil strike camo pattern on your hat. And you're saying you like the hats. I actually do too. They're comfortable. But that really sweet pattern you can also get on those rain suits. And so that's a pretty awesome feature.
Yeah, I want my boat wrapped in that. I think that'd be so cool to have a camel boat like that. I might shoot more ducks too while I'm catching fish out of it. No, I love the camel color. It's a great, the pattern's phenomenal. So yeah, it's really cool. I want my truck wrapped in it. I want everything wrapped in it. I want bed sheets that look like it too.
Okay, like amazingly though, I'm in for all of those things, and I know what you mean. So let's start working on them and see what they can put out there.
Yeah, striker bed sheets. I like that idea. They need a few more SKUs, so we'll be good.
Yeah. We do actually have another question here from Jonathan, so I'm going to kind of switch tracks a little bit. He says that he's going out around Zippo. Anywhere or any info on where to start or a good bait shop that he can spend some money at?
He's going out of Zipple Bay. Zipple?
Yeah, it must be.
Yep. So Zipple Bay is where I spent my day on Sunday catching all them fish. And when you come out of Zipple Bay, there's a couple buoys there, and they mark the big rock pile right out in front of it. And about 22 feet of water, Jonathan. All you got to do is you'll see the boats. There'll be plenty of boats out there. And I call the big charter boats snowballs. You'll see the snowballs everywhere because you look on the horizon, you see white boat, white boat, white boat. It's pretty cool. So it looks like a bunch of snowballs. But get out there, vertical jig them. If you don't catch a fish, 10 minutes, move 20 yards, 30 yards, go a foot deeper, a foot shallower, and you will find them. They are stacked out there. There's a lot of fish on that side right now, and they're not going anywhere right now. They'll stay in that area for probably another week or two. Bait shop wise, it depends where you're coming from. If you're coming up the bog road on 72 there from Bemidji, you're going to pass every bait store that's in Baudette and up in the resort road. So that's pretty cool. If you're coming in from the west, from like Grand Forks, Fargo area and stuff, you'll be going through War Road. They have a couple good shops there, but you'll be able to log cabin and border baits just down the road from Zipple Bay.
That's awesome.
Perfect.
We've gotten through quite a few questions here tonight, and that's been a whole lot of fun. But you have a whole lot going on, outside the show that can, give people information, talk about fishing and all that. So, tell us about that.
Well, my plate's pretty full. But I started a new radio station or a radio show up here with one of their local radio stations out of Bemidji, and they broadcast here in Lake of the Woods. It's called the Low for Lake of the Woods Fishing Show with Captain Beef, and it's on 94.5, and they can actually listen to it online too. I have to write it down. It was kpmifm.com. That's the site for it. So it airs on Friday nights at 5:20 and re-airs again on Saturdays at 9:10, 9:20 in that time frame. And each week I have a couple special guests. We talk fishing, we talk Lake of the Woods, we talk the Baudette community. It's such a small community, but such a tight-knit community. It's amazing, the people up here. And I've only lived here for a year and a half, so it's been neat to be able to give him this honor to do this. Striker's going to have some stuff for us to give away. There's actually a text during the show. You can text Beef at a certain number when we say it online or on air, and you're entered into drawings. And you also get updated fishing reports from me throughout the year too. It's going to go through August, so it keeps us pretty busy there. But I'm really excited to do it. It's been a dream of mine to go have my own radio show, and it's trial by air for the first few episodes, and then after that I'll be a little more comfortable. I'm not afraid of the camera or the microphone, as you can tell anyways, but it's really neat. So this week we have our two special guests this week. We have one of the local conservation officers here, and he's going to talk about some of the things he sees on the water, along with some general boating safety tips. And then we have a young man who's a junior at Lake of the Woods High School. His name is Riley, and he created Riley's Reef Runners. And the kid is an absolute artist, and he takes crankbaits and he loads them up he paints them all with certain patterns, and he even does custom ones for people. So if the Crappie Junction wanted their own crankbait, he would do that. So it's pretty cool. But it's really neat to see a young man like that doing what he does. And so I'm hoping to just, allow him the chance to see what the industry is all about,
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's really cool because earlier in the show you had talked about, getting different youth back into fishing, back on the water. And, there's so many different opportunities that maybe aren't even involving water, to get youth involved. Painting lures is kind of a really fancy way to do that. If you have an airbrush set up and all of that at home, that's really, really cool. But, if you are at home and you have somebody that you are trying to get involved into fishing, take your old jigs, take your old lures. You can paint them even with nail polish. Don't tell your wife because she'll be mad. Go to the store.
I'm single. If I have nail polish in the house, watch out. People might start talking.
But that is so cool. Like you're saying, to be able to listen to those people and the things that they're doing and to kind of share those stories. That's really awesome, especially when it's somebody that's like really local to you and just kind of breaking into the field. That's excellent.
Yeah, we're going to try to also bring in owners of all the different resorts. So it's going to be, I'm going to try to get everyone to talk a little bit about what their resort's about. We have so many cool resorts up here too. We have one resort that's a family resort. And as the owners pass away in the family, they actually have the cemetery on the resort grounds. It's so cool to see. So like grandma and grandpa and great grandma and great grandpa are buried on the grounds. And if there's been siblings that have passed and stuff, and that's in the back, it's not right in the middle of all the cabins and stuff, but it's really cool to see. And that resort's a phenomenal one. So I'm hoping to bring in them guys and talk a little bit about their resort. The resort I work at, Cyrus, is it's a phenomenal resort. And, and Justin and Tanya do a phenomenal job there. Almost a lot of the other resorts come to that resort to eat. The food is awesome. And COVID waits really helped me a lot, so I can thank Cyrus Resort for that, all the good food. But, and the best part is I get to spend a lot of this with Logan and Luke too, and they're striker pros too. So it's really neat to have them on board. And it's neat to watch what they're learning too with everything.
That's awesome. And then you were mentioning that they were actually, doing a little bit of fishing with you these days. Is that true?
Oh, I don't really know why I go out and fish because they outfish me every time. And it's crazy. Logan actually got his captain's license. He finished the class with me, and but he has to wait till he turns 18 in October to be a certified United States Coast Guard guide. So he's all ready to go, just waiting until October. So he's all excited about that. Luke is a full-time dock boy. Went to schools out in Bemidji. He lives up here, and he's already been working a few days this year. And he's absolutely a pro working on the docks, and he loves to talk to people, and he loves to just make sure people have a great experience. So it's been really neat. But when I put him in the boat with me, I mean, we have like 2 John boats and a couple of small 14-footers, and then Logan has his own Yarcraft, and I got my Ranger, and now Luke wants his own boat. And I mean, I'm going broke, but it's fun. I'm sure glad they enjoy the outdoors, and I can tell Logan he's not here right now. He's watching online, but I'm a better fisherman than he is.
You know what he is better than me at, though? Selling hats. No, I'm not kidding. So for those people at home, those boys, they come to the shows, they come to the expos, they work the booths, they know these striker products. I mean, gosh, we should have them on the show sometime. We're sitting here talking about how awesome they are. But they come to the shows and the expos, they know these different products. They're able to, help adults in adult ways. Even a few years ago, they're pretty close to growing up now, but even through their youth, just hard workers. So I gotta say, I would definitely recommend them as guides, because if they work half as hard out there as they do at a show and an expo, you will catch fish.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool to watch. Like this last few winters up here, Logan and Luke have both guided on the wintertime. So Luke would take people out in 4-wheelers or snowmobiles, and Logan would, since he's 17, he could drive, so he was taking people out. And yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I'm so happy and thankful. I know it's a striker show, but this is where I get a chance to say thanks to Striker, because who's going to turn to an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old at the time and allow them to work for a brand that is a major player in the outdoor world? And Striker allowed that. And it was so cool, and what it's taught the boys on how to deal with people and how to deal with customers and how to be honest. And it was really an eye-opening experience for the boys, and that was all because of Striker. And it was because of the great crew in the front office and stuff. And they gave the kids a chance and they worked with them. And they showed them how to do it. So, you know, when they get a chance to get in those booths, they're not trained to sell the product. They're trained to give the customer what they want. And that's what's really cool. And the customer needs to know when they come in. If they don't know it, the kids will teach them what they need. So that's what's really cool.
That is really, really cool. You know, and that just, again, brings me back to getting youth involved in fishing and back on the water. You know, that's a really cool way that they are able to do that. But again, it reminds me, I mean, they have a whole line of ice fishing gear for youth, you know, all float suits, you know, with the adjustable hemlines, you know, to grow with the kids as they age on the ice. I mean, that's a huge factor. The safety, the function, like being warm, you know, being comfortable, all of that. So again, thank you for that perspective, because that's some really cool stuff there.
Well, and what people, you know, with Logan and Luke now being 17 and 14, what's really, people don't realize this either with the Predator gear. And that's the youth line is it, which, well, it's what I love the gear no matter what, but they can use that even as a young adult because it expands with them. So when you're a dad and a mom and you start finding out when you're having kids like tennis shoes, my Lord, you know, kids will grow in 3 months, they need new shoes already, stuff like that. This gear allows it to expand with them as they get older. So you don't have to necessarily buy a new suit each year with Predator or with Striker. It's really cool, you know, and that's what's neat about it too. But I do have, I mean, they're both in adult suits now, and oh my God, I mean, we got Striker gear all over the place with them. But the other cool part is with that ice is it floats. So, you know, and it's a safety, it's a peace of mind to me. And this river, you fall through in the river with the current through the ice, you're not coming back. Here, at least you have a chance to still stay in the water and grab onto it if you fall through. And that's a peace of mind to the parents or the guardians out there too.
Yeah. Well, and even if it's not for a youth, you know, those are the same properties that are in the adult suits, you know, so if you're a girlfriend getting it for your boyfriend or husband for a wife or, you know, vice versa, getting it for just a loved one in general, you know, that's what this is all about. So
it works. I've jumped in a few times with it just to test it, see if it holds this sexy body, and it does. So
it does.
Even with just the bibs, with just the bibs, it still floats you. It doesn't turn you upside down like people think. It floats you, and it does a great job. So yeah, I trust it big time.
Yeah,
that's so cool. So, you know, it's amazing how fast time flies. So, you know, we're here winding down, but you have so many awesome things to talk about and so many cool adventures to come. So for people at home who want to continue to follow you, how do they do that?
I have so many different ways, but I have an Instagram page, my Facebook page. I use both. I have a business one that says Fathead Guide Service and Promotions, but I also use my personal page for business too. So it's Bryan-Beef-Sathre, Sathre, Bryan's with a Y. But it's that's the best way to follow me is on social media. My website and stuff is all going to get updated as soon as my captain's license shows up here in the mail, probably in the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to have a whole new website at fatheadguideservice.com. And so that I can't wait to have that updated. It's outdated right now. It still says I live in Bemidji. So yeah, but yeah, you know, if people have questions, feel free to reach out to me, send me a DM or whatever. And it's all about the sport. It's all about going out there, having a blast. You know, everyone's a good fisherman. Some just want to brag more than the others, but hey, I'm just happy to be on the water and be above ground.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And, you know, thank you again for being here tonight and talking about all these things that we got through here. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been a blast. And we've been trying to do this for a little while and try to meet up and stuff, but busy schedules. And hey, nice part was there's no fire calls tonight either. So we were able to get through this show without me having to run out on a fire call. So yeah, it's been a blast. And, you know, if anyone has a question, they can go through you guys, reach out to me too. And let's do this again sometime soon too. Just we can even make it a short little update on what Lake of the Woods is doing if people want to know.
Cool. Fabulous. That would be awesome.
all right.
Awesome. We're looking forward to that. And, you know, for the people at home, thank you as well for being here. It's always a lot of fun chatting with you guys and answering your questions, especially when they're relevant to you, things that you're going to use. Those are great questions. So, you know, again, thanks for being here. Also looking forward to next week's episode. So can't wait to see you again. And thanks for joining us on this week's episode of Hook, Line, and Striker.
Bye, everybody.